Well, they released the interview of Jill Stein with Mehdi Hasan, so I was extremely excited when I saw that, and it is the full interview. Fingers crossed we will be able to use this. Otherwise, I'll have to break it up into some segments. But I want to watch the whole thing and do a live react with you guys. So let's go for it, shall we?
Every vote that's cast for Kamala Harris.
Let's go back to 2016 for a moment, when Donald Trump narrowly beat Hillary Clinton in the US presidential election. There was one specific politician, a lefty third-party candidate who faced a lot of backlash after being accused of playing spoiler and handing the election to Trump. I'm talking, of course, about Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein, who famously won tens of thousands of left-leaning votes in several key swing states that year, exceeding Trump's margin of victory over Clinton in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Had all those Stein votes gone to Clinton instead, Trump would never have won the Electoral College nor the presidency. Now, Jill Stein has always insisted that she...
Okay, so just by, the facts, she did actually impact that election to the point where she was a spoiler candidate.
Did not cost Clinton that election, that most of her voters wouldn't have even turned out that year if she weren't on the ballot. Democrats,
she keeps saying that,
don't agree. And they're super mad that she is running for president again.
She keeps saying that. She keeps saying that these are the people that aren't going to turn out. That's bullshit. Anybody that actually even knows who you are, by merit, they're going to be politically active. So it's kind of disingenuous to think that these people are not going out there and, aren't going to vote kind of thing. And on top of it, what are you trying to say that they shouldn't? Even because
for the Greens this year, in another super close race between Donald Trump and a female Democrat, this time Kamala Harris. Stein and her running mate, the Muslim-American historian Butch Ware, are calling for an end to the genocide in Gaza and perhaps unsurprisingly have the support of a growing number of Muslim voters.
It's almost like they just put their presidential campaign together just to piss off a certain sect of people that have a certain percentage number that they could take away. But here's the thing. They're not leveraging any of this. What have they actually said they're going to do with any of this power that they hold?
Voters, which could make a huge difference in crucial swing states like Michigan. Here's the thing, though. Stein isn't going to win the presidential election. She's polling at just 2%. So will her candidacy give us Trump? Again, is she right to say Democrats and Republicans are all the same? And what about her own contentious record? Earlier, I sat down for an in-depth interview with Jill Stein and her running mate. Now, some of you may think she's a spoiler who doesn't deserve platforming. Others may be so enamored by her that you don't think she should have to answer any tough questions. She's great on Gaza. Well, I disagree. It's important to do a wide-ranging and challenging interview with a presidential candidate. So here it is, my sit-down, tough but fair, with Green Party presidential and vice presidential candidates Jill Stein and Butch Ware. Dr. Jill Stein, Professor Butch Ware, Green Party presidential and vice presidential candidates.
Just a quick reminder that with that 2%, that's what she's polling at. What they actually got was 0.5% of the vote. But
thank you so much for joining me on Mehdi Unfiltered.
Great to be here.
Appreciate it.
Just enough in Michigan to upset it.
You being here. Jill Stein, what is the Green Party offering the American public in 2024 that the Democratic and Republican parties are not offering?
Well, for one thing, the American public is clamoring for more choices, so we are a choice. And we are a choice that's not bought and paid for by oligarchs and billionaires and the usual suspects and AIPAC and the war contractors. And all of these are very hot issues. And what we have with Democrats and Republicans, with Democrats we have lip service on the key issues that...
Does she not understand that Bernie Sanders did that within the Democratic Party?
People are in crisis about, but not solving the problems, not at all. In fact, taking further steps away from what the public needs. We are not getting the health care we need. Over 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Half of all Americans are paying up to 50% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. We have incredible crisis going on. And despite that, we have a Congress, Democratic and Republican, and leadership in the White House that is spending half of our...
Hey, someone in the comments, can you tell me what building that is behind them?
Congressional dollars, which actually amounts to $12,000 per household, according to Jeffrey Sachs, if you calculate it out, on this endless war machine, which is not serving us, and of which the genocide in Gaza is really kind of a microcosm of what's wrong with this imperial foreign policy.
So, Butch Ware, you're a historian of Africa at the University of California, Santa Barbara. You're a prominent Muslim-American scholar. You're not known as a Green Party stalwart or politician.
Sure.
What made you want to join this presidential ticket?
I'll be honest, if you had given me probably 100 years, I wouldn't have volunteered to run for office. But when I was called upon to enter into really the fight for like all of the things that I've been writing about and researching and organizing in both academic and activist and artistic environments, right? I've always been about connecting
I was literally just thinking this guy reminds me of people that I knew from drum circles.
people to the resources to strive for social justice.
Not saying
so
that
when
we're
tagged in
drum
by,
circles are fun.
Dr. Jill Stein
Good people
to run
too.
on this ticket, I vetted the party platform, and one of the things that I discovered actually is that my oldest friend from childhood, Sean Young, which I'd known for a long time, Annie Young, was actually the first elected.
Sean Young. Wait, isn't I know. Probably not the same person, but isn't that the actress from Blade Runner?
A Green Party official in the state of Minnesota. She served for 20 plus years. She was my backup mother. I knew all about the Green Party from childhood. And what I learned from Annie Young, who is a legend in the state of Minnesota. In fact, we went to Annie Young Meadow and had a moment of silence in her honor. I found out that Annie Young was one of Dr. Jill Stein's mentors in the Green Party when she came aboard. So all of that is just to say that I learned early on in my life that the Green Party doesn't really have politicians, it has public servants. And when I was tagged in to public service as opposed to just an academic and activist role, yeah, I'm not going back down from a fight.
Jill, you mentioned Gaza. A lot of supporters of Israel say Israel is being unfairly targeted.
I'm just going to say, I would love, like, because she keeps saying she would love to debate Kamala Harris and Trump. I actually would like to see that just because I love to see Trump just...
by the left. He has a right to defend
Can you imagine what he'd say about her? Look at her. She's probably coming out here with her crystal healing. She's going to heal everybody.
Jewish critic of Israel. What do you say to those who condemn the left for being not anti-Zionist, but anti-Semitic, they say, in their criticisms of Israel? And just out of interest, also, you're a Jewish critic of Israel. Do you consider yourself to be a Zionist?
Absolutely not. I grew up a Zionist. It was just part of growing up Jewish after the Holocaust, where the genocide of the Jews was a very big deal, and where opposing genocide. And
that's why the Zionism is like so prominent, though, within the American culture, is because like evangelicals are, and when you grow up hearing about, Israel, the promised land of Israel, and it tends to be, make you a little Zionisty.
Genocide must never happen again, not to anyone, was really critical to my upbringing and my understanding of the world. And, like all good Jews, I was taught that Israel was a land without people and a people without a land. And I had accepted that. But as I became active politically, especially with the Green Party, where a lot of people were paying attention to this issue, in 2006 we took a stand against apartheid, against occupation, and on behalf of boycott, divestment, and sanctions in order to end the occupation and the ethnic cleansing. So it's, I have very much become aware that Zionism is not Judaism. And the most anti-Semitic thing one can say now is that it is anti-Semitic to oppose.
Why does he kind of give me the vibe that he does not agree with that? I'm talking about him.
Genocide, in my view, saying that it is, anti-Semitic is an absolute slap in the face to Jews and Jews of my generation who grew up in the wake of the genocide. That's really inseparable from our Jewish values, but from human values, from Muslim values.
It's interesting you mentioned Jews of your generation. There's a big generational gap amongst the American Jewish community where young Jewish Americans are on campus protesting right now and supporting the Greens in many ways. But are you hoping, I assume, that a lot of not just young voters, progressives, but a lot of Muslim and Arab American voters will vote Green this year because of their outrage over Gaza? And I wonder, have you got any evidence to support that contention? People aren't just upset, they're going to ditch the Dems and vote Green over Gaza?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to hope. We ran the numbers, right? So Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, Dalia Mogahed, has actually shown us, given us the...
Okay, but is that the right move for them? Like, for real? If you're looking, like... Somebody had said this earlier. I forgot who actually made the full point, but they were talking about voting for less human suffering because this isn't just a lesser of two evils. This is legitimately putting a number on human suffering. So will this add to the human suffering? Will it make it so Donald Trump can wipe out the entire coastline of Gaza and also, displace more people? Like, or is it going to be, a little bit more milquetoast, but like ceasefire? But to not acknowledge that you guys could possibly not only upset the election for the Democrats in that way, it's kind of insane not to look at it and see that this could be dangerous. The other, like with Donald Trump coming back into office. Usually I wouldn't even acknowledge that I had to do anything, but That was a politician. It was my county treasurer. Nice guy. And it was also, he was helping the new chairperson for the Democratic Party in my county. So that was, hey, you know what? That was cool. I enjoy talking to them. But let's get back to it.
The statistical breakdown, these are all publicly available figures. So if you take the 3 swing states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia, in the 2020 elections, these are all similar demographic states, large African-American populations, large Muslim populations. In 2020, Joe Biden won those states with 65% of the Muslim vote. In January 2024, he was receiving 12% of the Muslim vote, which means, in point of fact, the Democrats have already lost this election.
Although that was Biden, he's no longer the candidate.
And so that number did not even get up to 20% with Kamala Harris. Only about 5% are going towards Trump, 80% are going third party. And the overwhelming majority of those that are going third party are coming to the Green Party. CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, recently released polling figures that showed nationwide we are polling neck and neck with Kamala Harris, which means that we are already doing massive damage in the Muslim
I looked at that CARE poll. It's not the most scientific of polls.
I didn't say it was a scientific poll. However,
and according to that CARE poll,
the ISPU ones, however,
agreed.
are. Okay, good.
But the CARE poll, it's interesting you should mention it, since we're on it just briefly.
Sure, absolutely.
Jill Stein, you're tied at 29-29.
Yep.
But that same CARE poll showed you at 36 back in June. So you've actually dropped 7 points since Biden was swapped out for Harris.
Right, and that's not...
Harris is getting a boost.
That's not surprising. Yes, and of course she could, and she's been getting the benefit of the doubt, but I think her recent behavior is driving people away.
No argument for me.
Absolutely.
No argument for me on that.
And she's doing her best.
So let me ask you this, though.
All of her policy
The Green Party agenda.
For full disclosure, this was filmed right after she did the "Excuse me, I'm speaking. I hear you, but right now is like not the time to address the protesters." And then they were also mad about how she didn't bring up a Palestinian speaker for the Democratic National Convention.
In my view, not speaking for other people, it's a pretty popular agenda. You look at the things you're advocating, Americans want it.
Absolutely.
Which is why the Democrats are,
but my question is, and we've got a lot to talk about that. I want to talk about the agenda.
Yeah, but that's... Jake Uger goes on about that, about progressive values and how they are actually populist, like massively populist. But the reason that we always have a problem in getting these enacted is, I hate to say, kind of people like her, where it's so easy to look at her and then not take her seriously based on her answers.
More about Gaza, a lot of issues. But just at the beginning to establish, because you're the candidate, it's a popular agenda, but why are you the face of it? Why are you the candidate? Because you ran in 2012. You ran in 2016.
Yeah, why not get behind somebody else?
In 2012. You got 1.1% in 2016. We're living in a year where older candidates are stepping aside for fresh blood. Why did you think I'm going to do this a third time in my 70s, having done it in 2012 and 2016?
Mainly, we had another candidate who is going to be our presidential candidate, Dr. Cornel West, who has very similar positions to us. And very shortly before our paperwork was due, he decided he would prefer to run solo. For entirely understandable reasons. It's not easy to build a relationship with a political party, especially a party.
Okay, but that should actually prove that point that I was just making, that you're having trouble even bringing in Cornel West.
Party that doesn't come with a campaign in a box and small.
So you stepped in because there was no one else?
Well,
this guy
is enormous pressure.
He's such a dork.
On me to step in because I was one of 2 people who could have basically built a campaign in the 3 weeks that we had. So believe me,
I was wondering.
I'm a little bit of a dork myself.
Fair enough.
I was not going to.
Also, let me pose a question. I'm going to bring you in, because I've got a question for both of you that's relevant to this, which is there is also an experience issue to address here. Obvious experience issue. When Trump ran for president, a lot of people, myself included, said he did not have the experience. A reality TV star, a dodgy New York property developer, had no business being anywhere near the Oval Office, and he proved it in office. He was completely incompetent, reckless. Put aside the ideology. He wasn't just not qualified. He had no history of public service. You, Jill Stein, have only served in one elected role, I believe, on Lexington Town Council, which you won with 539 votes. Butch Ware, I think you mentioned already, you've not run for office before, you've not held any office before. So what makes the 2 of you qualified to run the world's most powerful country, the world's biggest economy, most advanced military?
Yeah, so let me just jump in. So I served for 5 years on Lexington Town Meeting. But beyond that, I served in leadership positions enacting campaign finance reform and public financing in the state of Massachusetts, where we passed that as a referendum, had to build a strong coalition, had to do all the public policy.
Man, she likes using that word.
Things in order to do that. I helped lead the effort to
but she doesn't actually like building actual coalitions.
Clean up our coal plants and to push for renewable energy in Massachusetts.
Which are great efforts, but not qualifications to be commander-in-chief of the world's most powerful country.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, because what's really important to have is not to have experience being bought off. And that alone, I think, puts our campaign head and shoulders above our competitors.
So Bernie Sanders, by merit, of what you're saying, is bought off.
They are not bought off.
Okay, go.
Might I be tagged in?
Please.
I'm looking forward to the day that they allow Dr. Jill Stein on stage with the other two candidates, and let's just flip the question with respect to qualifications. And Dr. Jill Stein can look towards Team Red and say, this
Tag team. That's they hold on to a rope.
one is being led by domestic terrorists who attempted to overthrow the United States government on January 6th. So who has the qualifications? The other one, Team Blue, is being led by a woman who has participated actively in what the International Criminal Court and International Court of Justice have defined as what? An illegal apartheid state?
The Blue Meanie.
Committing an illegal genocide. Hold on.
Really is just a
No,
wrestling.
1 second. Because I'm going to come back to qualifications. Okay? It's not about policy. It's actually about qualifications.
It's about building.
Exactly.
It's about building coalitions that can work together and accomplish things.
An apartheid state.
Does she just repeat that over and over, and she thinks that's gonna work? That's how you're gonna sell yourself to the American people? It's about building coalitions and
genocide and illegal occupation. So all of these things are to say is that there are moral and ethical qualifications for holding office as well. And as for me, as a 30-year-old...
Why does she always look so uncomfortable when he's I watched another interview with Charlemagne the God, and she did the same thing. But anytime that he starts speaking, about these issues, she looks super uncomfortable and she doesn't necessarily... it's maybe not agree, but she does look uncomfortable. She knows that this is not going to be taken very well.
Managing $1.5 million in grants, operating international programs. There's no question that with an actual medical doctor and a PhD, that we have been at the top of our respective fields, that we are going to be the most qualified White House actually to serve in any recent memory.
You don't think you need to be a senator, a governor,
no. Come on, Mehdi.
in the military, a government of 3 million people, deal with world leaders. You make it sound very simple. On that basis, couldn't anyone walking down the street in D.C. run for president? On the description that Butch just...
Well, I mean, that's the great thing about our country is technically, yeah. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be.
They could not. I mean, it's not a simple matter to run for president.
Now we're in agreement.
We agree on that.
Okay.
And we are the only people...
I mean, I wasn't saying it wasn't it's a hard thing. I'm just saying, technically, yeah, it should be open to any American citizen.
Our political party that actually has
over
nationwide
35,
ballot access, and we have maintained that actually for decades.
Naturalized citizen.
So on so many fronts, we are qualified and we are uniquely qualified. So absolutely, and further, we have supporters who have had that experience.
Absolutely.
So Jeffrey Sachs, for example, would be our Secretary of State, is a very strong supporter for the campaign. Michael Hudson, who has advised many governments around the world.
Although I do remember Trump saying, "I'll surround myself with great people too."
Leadership is the capacity to delegate responsibility, right? And to listen and to take counsel. And Jill is a leader.
Let's talk about policy. Since you mentioned policy there, you mentioned the International Criminal Court. You say you're running to stop the genocide, right?
Oh, yeah.
Can you explain to me and to our viewers how voting for you both in November, given you won't actually win the presidency, will stop, given you won't actually win the presidency, will stop the genocide? How does a protest vote for the Greens, and I get the protest vote, I get a lot of people, and I understand it, but how does it stop the genocide? Lay down the steps for me that stops the genocide.
Yeah, so what stops the genocide, number one, if we turn the White House green, which would be a great...
No, he's asking about reality.
Thing, but we would pick up the phone. I would pick up the phone on day one, and the genocide is over. So this is actually doable.
But you're not going to be president.
Well,
says you.
Well, no, says the American people. Says the fact that you're polling at 2%. No, it says reality, dude.
No, it says the polls. You're at 2% in the polls.
And because we cannot get on mainstream media, Mehdi, so you are part...
I'm not saying why.
Exactly.
I'm not saying why you're at 2%. There's many reasons why you're at 2%. I'm just saying you're not going to be president on November the 5th.
In your view.
No, in your view too.
No.
Hold on.
I suggest we table that discussion because we're not going to come
just
to
to be fair,
Let's part that and say how
I'll get the updated polls.
Let's focus on that because every vote that's cast for Kamala Harris or for Donald Trump is an endorsement of genocide. It is an affirmation of genocide. It says that you, the voter, says that this is okay. You are holding your nose and voting for genocide.
Understood.
On
I
the
understand
other
that
hand,
argument.
every vote for our campaign is a shot across the bow of the empire.
So it's about feeling good. It's not about actually changing
It's about
things.
Well, no, it is.
What you just described as a feeling, right?
No.
Yeah, it's a vibe based. That's all vibe based.
No, I said it is a shot. Well, let me finish.
Let me finish my question, then you can answer. Let me repeat the question. Lay out for me the steps whereby I go into a voting booth, vote green, and the genocide stops.
Let me put
I don't
it
see that
very
happening.
clearly. So whether we get 2%, 5%, 15%, we are creating a very organized coalition that is here for the long haul, for a political vehicle to stop genocide and the imperial policies that go with it. So every vote that one casts is huge, and every time one even registers in the polls on behalf of our campaign is another warning shot. So so where does that go? Where that goes is directly to the White House and to Congress to say that, you know, we not only have public opinions polls to show that this is the very firm commitment of the American people.
So it's a pressure campaign. It's to send a message.
Pressure. Well, it's
send
not,
a message to who, though?
To the power holders who
will be the power holders?
So whoever they are. And right now, they are, both Democrats and Republicans are ignoring the American people. 68%. So I just want to be clear,
if you get 15, 20%, let's say you get Ross Perot numbers, it would be huge.
Absolutely huge.
And there's no sign you're going to...
No, I hate to burst her bubble, but she's not even at 1.8% anymore. Hell, she's barely registering on the national poll averages.
But let's say you did. You think that would then on November the 5th...
Mehdi, don't close it down before it happens.
Well, less than 60 days.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's 0.8%.
Who would have thought Joe Biden was going to be
My bad.
6 months ago, I'll give you in less than 60 days. Let me just finish my question, I'll come to it. The point you're making, I get it. You get to 15, 20%, that'll be huge. It'll be Ross Perot territory if you got there.
And we are not going away.
But November the 6th, you're saying whoever the president-elect is, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, would look at that number and say, I need to change course.
Well, even before
you don't have to get to election day for that.
Okay, I'm glad you made that point. So let me bring you in, Butch. Noura Erakat. You know Noura Erakat. Palestinian-American activist academic. I believe she was considered to be your running mate before you offered the slot to Butch. She says she turned you down because she wants to pressure the Democrats, specifically the Democrats, into the current people in power, into changing course on Gaza. But you refuse to agree to step aside if Harris did the right thing on a ceasefire or an arms embargo. Doesn't that suggest...
Yeah, so that just suggests that she's an asshole and she doesn't actually care about this issue as much as she's pretending to actually care about this. She is using this as the wedge issue to get her percentage so she can use this for her next election cycle in 2028, you know, when she'll pop her head out. You know, I keep saying that she's the election cicada. So she'll pop her head out and then just be, we need to form a coalition and blah, 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 and not actually do anything. And then she's going to go for the far left issue at that point, whatever it be. And that's what she's going to attach herself to. That's just how she works.
Yes. That your party's priority is not stopping the genocide. It is being in the race as a spoiler, no matter what happens in Gaza.
Absolutely.
Yep. No, I totally agree with Mehdi on this one.
And the reason
That's
for
what
that,
Noura's tweet suggests.
Yes, well, Noura is new to the political process. Bless her heart for even considering, you know, doing this.
What about this guy?
Absolutely insane way of life. But she is new to this process. And one thing you learn.
If you guys are honestly serious, and I mean this, go ahead, vote for this ticket. I don't even listen. Even if I was in theory behind a Green Party, I would not get behind this because they suck. They suck. Did you guys get to vote for her? Because everybody keeps saying that too about the Republicans were bringing that up about, well, you didn't even get to really vote for Kamala. Well, did you guys vote for her? Did you guys choose her as the leader of the Green Party and to continue doing this? I mean, Mehdi made a great point. Why is she the face of the Green Party when she constantly fails?
You're not getting it back, especially nowadays when it's way more costly. It's absolutely prohibitive. So if as a grassroots people-powered campaign, you give up your ballot status, you're done. So
people-powered
what we know is that simply
people-powered
getting a
campaign.
ceasefire it's not over and done. We still have an occupation. We still have an apartheid state.
But you're not going to end the occupation between now and November the 5th.
Yes, but that's exactly the point, is that we have to be here for the long haul. We are not just till November 6th.
So talk me through, you're saying Noura doesn't understand politics. Noura's logic seems to be pretty simple. If you go to the Democrats and say, hey, we've got all this support, and if you don't give an arms embargo, and the Democrats say, all right, they won't, but let's say we give you an arms embargo, and then you carry on running.
Well, and then they change their mind.
But they could say the same.
You what? So you're just going to go like defeatist already? Like the fact that she's trying to actually change something. It's the same with Bernie Sanders. He actually tried to do it through the Democratic Party, and he was very successful at it. This is why nobody takes you seriously, Chill.
Well, what we can say to them right now is that if you agree to that arms embargo, you are winning back a lot of votes.
You're winning your votes.
God, she's everybody's weird aunt that comes to Thanksgiving and gives you healing crystals.
The votes that are coming to us, you're going to win them back.
The American people.
So you'll say that publicly. You'll say that publicly.
Oh, we already have.
I just want to be clear because it's not clear to me.
Yeah.
If tomorrow Kamala Harris comes out and says, as president, I will bring in an arms embargo on Israel.
Not saying she will.
How does she do it? She's not the president.
Well, but she is the vice president.
Okay.
But we know that she doesn't control Joe Biden.
Well, but she has a lot of say in
so
this.
now the goalposts seem to be moving.
No, she doesn't. And honestly, this is also where, because here's your little lesson, miss. I don't know how many members are even in Congress. What'd she say, 600?
presidential candidate says, as Uncommitted Movement want her to say.
You have to get them involved too. Remember that.
I support an arms embargo on Israel. You will say, I'm just trying to get to the end of this process. You will say, I, Jill Stein, say you will get some of my supporters on November the 5th.
Well, I mean, clearly she will.
But you won't say it.
She would.
Well, no, I have already acknowledged that a lot of support is coming to us because of Kamala Harris's refusal to consider an arms embargo.
So it's actually relatively simple and straightforward, okay? Imagine being in a position where all you have to do in order to win election is to stop committing the most heinous... Hold on, let me finish, Mehdi.
That's not, it's not even... I'm sorry. Like, this is just an objective reality about American politics. This is not the issue that's going to sway the electorate. I'm sorry. This will not win the left any position. It's just reality.
Stop committing the most heinous genocide in recent memory. A decimation, literally 1/10 of the population murdered in 11 months.
Agreed.
And all you have to do in order to meet the American people is to stop that genocide. This question, in point of fact, is not for us. This question is for Kamala Harris. How deeply does your soul have to be folded in the pockets of AIPAC and the war machine that you are willing to lose this election because they have already lost this election if they continue with this stance?
I do a lot of these
Please.
interviews.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I tell people this. I'm going to tell you what I tell everyone else.
Say it.
I've had Democrats on my show sitting right where you sat. I've asked them these questions.
Yes.
This is not about the Democrats. I'm asking the Green Party
Understood.
strategy.
Fair point.
So I'm saying if the Green Party say we're going to stop the genocide when you vote for us, we're entitled to say, how does voting for you stop the genocide?
Okay, and might I just expand on this
Please.
particular
Notice how he just got really whiny about that and didn't answer the question.
point?
Briefly.
The Green Party does not exist simply to stop the genocide in Gaza.
Okay, fair
the
enough.
Green Party exists in order to restore democracy to the American people, in order to...
Well, but isn't that the issue that you've chosen to actually like push though to prove your point? Like, so okay, so now you're just gonna abandon the Muslim coalition that you did build.
Provide a voice for all of the people who are not interested in the culture wars between red and blue. It is there to do long-term things like establish ranked choice voting,
Agreed.
to abolish the electoral college.
Honestly, at this point, I mean, this is what's creating the Purple Party.
To run on reparations,
Yep.
land
And we'll come
back,
back to your
social
policy agenda,
housing.
I promise.
So, but that's my point, is that
Well, I'm
you
glad you said that.
do not just throw away 40 years of building a party because Nora Arrowcott wants you to.
I just wanted to be clear as to what the goal was. You're making it very clear that even you are about more than the genocide. I just wanted to make that clear.
And to her benefit, what she suggested is not, some kind of crazy outlandish
I mean,
idea.
you can understand as a Democrat.
Suggestion.
You can understand as a Democrat if you're pushing your party. There are a lot of good Democrats trying to push their party towards the arms embargo. And then the Greens say, well, we're running anyways, and we're still going to screw you over. Democrats might think, well, you don't really.
We're screwing them over.
I'm so glad you said that because that's brought me to my next question. So we can move on to that subject. Democrats think you are. Democrats think you are screwing them over.
Well, of course they are. Because they are screwing themselves.
Hold on, let me ask the question, then you can answer. In 2016, you know the number of votes you got in the three crucial swing states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin exceeded Donald Trump's margin of victory over Hillary Clinton, each of those three states. You and I spoke before that election where I said, hey, you might actually swing some of these states. Do you want to tell people to vote Hillary in swing states? You said, absolutely not. We talked about it on Al Jazeera at the time. I know you point out that a lot of those voters would have stayed at home, so they wouldn't have swung it.
Guess what? They didn't.
Polls. We know that.
But they would have stayed at home unless you had told them to vote for Hillary Clinton, which you refused to do.
They would not. They would not.
Okay.
Our voters do not take marching orders from political bosses.
It's not even marching orders. It's called a fucking endorsement. You are still leaving it open to your voters, but you're also shutting down the possibility of just being like, yeah, you know what? Things are going to be objectively worse if Donald Trump wins. We need to get some of our support behind Hillary Clinton so then we can try and pressure the Democratic Party and these politicians for the next 4 years and build our coalition, the word that she likes so much, and then, try to pressure them. But if you guys want to have the harder enemy, that's how that works.
We'll have to agree to disagree what would have happened in 2016. But in 2024, I wonder, or in 2017-18, when you told me at the time, there's no difference. There's not enough difference between Clinton and Trump, is what you told me at the time.
Well, what I said is that they're not different enough
Not different
to
enough.
save your job, to save your life.
And you said they're both
That's
evils.
right.
You said they're both
That's
evils,
still
just as you said about Harris and Trump. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, she's always going to say that.
During that disastrous Trump presidency, when kids were being kidnapped from their parents at the border, when people were dying en masse from COVID, when he was praising Nazis, doing domestic terrorism, as Butch says, did you ever at any point say, maybe I got that one wrong?
Oh, no. It's just that we needed to have given the American people a greater choice here, and we need to have been heard. We're not going to remember,
So literally, the crux of her argument is we just need to give the American people somebody that's not the other two, and it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter if they support us or not. One of these days they'll wake up. It'll happen. It will happen. My hair was blonde when I started this, but it will happen.
Trump voters are basically people who are voting against Democrats, against Hillary Clinton, against Joe Biden. You know, that's where that came from. It also came from the Pied Piper strategy, whereby the Democrats lifted up the most extreme Republican, and they do that over and over. And the last thing,
do you ever go, you know what?
No,
Judging how
and
bad
I'll
Trump
tell
was,
you why.
when people were piling up in morgues in New York,
Because
when he was
Democrats-
telling people to put bleach in your arms.
Yeah.
Do you ever think, actually, Hillary would have done COVID better? We all knew she would have.
Hillary
Yeah.
could have started World War III.
But we're talking about what
yeah,
happened.
totally.
Do you ever
Right.
think maybe I got that one wrong?
No,
No,
not at
you had
all.
no regrets during the
because
Trump
I'm
presidency.
absolutely convinced that Democrats are not the solution to right-wing extremism. In many ways, they are the cause of it through austerity, through privatization, through big tax
But in the
giveaways,
moment,
and much
2017
more.
to 2020, as the people are dying, as the Nazis are marching, you're not thinking.
Yeah, like she can see all of like the extreme on that, but she can't see the ones that were like, no, we suffered. Thank you for that.
Me to say that this-
Like I'm one of them. Thank you for that.
None of these things exist in isolation. We have several converging crises right
So
now.
here's the problem. Back in June, this is what we're doing this all again. The same arguments are being made, as you know. It's not the Democrats saying you're helping Donald Trump. Donald
No,
Trump is saying,
even-
he said it around
even
Jill Stein, I like
Republicans.
that
Yeah,
very
Donald
much.
Trump is
You know
saying
why?
it. Yep.
She takes 100% from them.
Yep.
Donald Trump seems to like your candidacy. Steve Bannon has said the
Yep.
same thing. Why are Republicans saying this if you're not?
Yep.
You know, I think
Yeah, why do you think she even has funding? I bet you if you were to do the little bit of digging, it's going to be a right winger
they
supporting
have
her.
the same, what should we say, extremely enlightened and visionary understanding of politics. No, I don't look to them for political analysis. No, and I
Not
don't
just
think
analysis, they're working on your behalf. According to the AP, let me put this to you.
Sure.
According to the Associated Press, just last week, Jefferson Thomas, a longtime Republican Party operative from Colorado, submitted petition signatures that his GOP law firm gathered on behalf of your campaign in New Hampshire. Republicans are cynically working to get you on the ballot because they think you're going to help them.
Of course, and this
Yeah.
enemy of my enemy is my friend logic is exactly the thing that the Democrats utilize that
I
ended
didn't
up
quote
with Trump.
Democrats.
Yeah, so why is it okay for you? When you're sitting here saying that we need to change the way that people look at it, why is this okay for you? So the lesser of two evils is only okay when you do it?
These are Republicans, Mitch.
But are you listening to my point? So what I'm saying is that the Republicans are thinking exactly the same way. We're not operating according to the same logic. We believe that we will draw many of those Bernie Trump voters. We believe that with an actual working class agenda that meets the needs of the American people, we will bring new voters into the process. We believe that by using data analysis carefully and reaching out to this young generation that is on fire about Gaza, that we will enroll a lot of new voters
I gotta smoke some weed to fucking listen to this.
in the 18 to 29 demographic. What those right-wing thugs do is
God.
their business.
'Cause you
It has
gotta be
no
high to listen.
purchase over our-
Like seriously, this is some fucking like you go to I keep saying the drum circle, but you go to whatever hippie bar is your favorite. Trust me, I frequent them. But this guy is literally one of the dudes that would be up there doing slam poetry.
game plan.
Stop putting in petitions on our behalf.
Absolutely. We don't need y'all's help. We
By the
don't
way, you
want y'all's
mentioned
help.
Bernie. Bernie, of course, is also worried that you are going to cost the Democrats or help Trump
If
win.
Bernie-
Yeah, Bernie Sanders, yes. When the guy that you're literally like, well, we're going to pull from his supporters, he's just like, no, I actually think that you're kind of an asshole.
As a green, he'd probably be president.
So let me ask you this. It's not just
What? No, he tried that shit with his running as an independent. And then he saw the national averages and was like, oh, you know what? This would actually probably work if I actually worked with the Democrats.
Democrats saying that you're helping the Republicans. It's not just Republicans saying you're helping the Republicans. You yourself seem to endorse that message, Jill Stein, over the weekend. You liked a comment on Instagram which said, and I quote, "The Dems need to be stopped. Either vote for Trump, or if you can't, then vote Green." You're endorsing the acceptability of voting for a fascist.
I don't know who liked that comment.
It's your
This is-
personal page, Dr. Jill Stein.
Yeah,
Instagram
well,
page.
it certainly wasn't done by me, so I don't know if
You
some
might want to
staff.
monitor that because
yeah.
you're a
Wow, so you have absolutely no accountability for the staff or the staffing for your campaign or anything related to your campaign when it's convenient to just to deny it.
presidential candidate, and you're endorsing a guy. He didn't say vote Green. He said vote for Trump, and if you can't, then vote Green. And you like that
Well,
comment.
that's crazy. Yeah, no, I would never agree with that.
Okay, well,
Not
I
at
hope,
all.
I hope we can fix that. That's
Yes.
from your Instagram over the
and
weekend.
let me say, the dirty tricks being played here by the Republicans
well,
are small change compared to the dirty tricks here being played by Democrats.
I'm not here to
You know
defend
what I mean?
There's your funders.
I'm just asking.
Yep.
And Anthony, you talked about at a press conference in Chicago.
You can sit there laughing all you want, bro. You just exposed your ass, and it had a big old elephant on it.
Last month, there were a bunch of people standing around you holding "Abandon Harris" signs. Now, you're a third party. You're against both main parties, right? One of the criticisms from the Democrats is you're only ever anti-them, not the Republicans. Where were the signs saying "Abandon Trump"? I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that wasn't under discussion at the moment, but absolutely, we are very much on record against Trump. But it's the Democrats who are.
No, you're not. No, you're really not. No, he just proved that you're on record actually supporting Trump on Instagram.
Held
And then conveniently, well, that wasn't me.
as a yardstick to measure us against. So that's where a lot of clarity needs to be lent.
But you would understand the perception. Look, if you're just surrounded by people saying abandon Harris, it looks like you're just running an anti-democratic campaign, not anti-republican.
Well, people can make of it what they will, but we are very clear. Our overarching comment on this is that the Democrats give lip service to the right things, whereas the Republicans don't even try. They don't even pretend.
If I might bring Malcolm into the conversation, and this was where we started a conversation on an Instagram Live that ended up with this candidacy coming together, right? This shared inheritance from Malcolm X. Malcolm called the liberals foxes and the conservative wolves. The liberals bare their teeth.
She just did there,
You think that they're
realizing
they're there.
that she's like, I don't think this is going to get us very far. But okay, go on with the Malcolm X stuff.
To eat you, you're on the menu. The wolf bears its teeth, and you know its intent. That is the, if I can say, the official position of this campaign with respect to Teams Red and Team Blue. One is an open.
Why does she look like she doesn't stand behind him in any way, shape, or form, and that she's nervous every time he speaks?
So let's drill down. I'm glad you brought that up. Do you believe? First of all, before I get to that question, if Trump wins in November,
yes,
are you fine with that?
Am I fine with that?
Yeah.
No thinking person would be fine with the idea of a completely incompetent, amoral, foolish, right? This is a man who could not pass any of my university classes under any circumstances, right?
So
nobody's fine with that.
So are you as fine with that as you are as fine with Harris winning?
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
They're equally bad.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay,
I'm going to tell you why,
yeah.
because this is what I wanted to say in response to the question that you were posing earlier. Everybody is fear-mongering around a Trump presidency. I'm sorry, they were Democrats that were sending cops to campuses to beat up kids on my campus, okay? Coming in riot gear to remove people from encampments. Yeah. These were Democratic cities, Democratic establishments that are keeping the cops back and allowing modern-day Irgun thugs to beat up kids on UCLA campus. And these are Democrats that are building cop cities. Please,
you don't think it can get worse?
Tag you in.
You don't think it can get worse? No, I'm going to finish with Butch because you made the point. You don't think it can get worse? You don't think Project 2025? You don't think putting the military on the streets, the Insurrection Act?
Let me be clear.
You called a domestic terrorist earlier. Not me. Is Kamala Harris a domestic terrorist?
She's an international war criminal.
But she's a domestic terrorist. Because you're saying,
it's an interesting semantic question. Let me put it this way.
Let's not do semantics.
May I answer the question?
You put me on the spot.
So what I said in a social media post some time back was that whether you vote Team Red or Team Blue, militarized fascism wins. And the reason is that both are operated by the 1%. They share 95% of the same patronage networks. They are owned by AIPAC and the War Machine. There is a faction fight amongst the 1% with Christian right-wing evangelicals and a diversity agenda on the other side, and that is driving this comeback.
But the faction fight is pretty existential because it affects the future of our country.
The faction fight is existential for people like you who cannot imagine a green future and can only imagine endless war between teams red and blue.
It's not about imagining it, dude. It's about acknowledging it, which apparently you can't do. You're on the other side of this with your rainbows and lollipops mentality of, we're going to win with 2% of the vote. Yeah, we will totally win. No, and then you're just, you guys refuse to see a future without us. No, without you guys, maybe, because you're also refusing to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, you guys are assholes.
As for us, we're not interested in the purple fascists. For us, they're very, very similar.
I guess the problem is it's great rhetoric, but in practice.
So you guys aren't for any other American way of life except for what you deem fit? Because what you just said, the purple fascism, you mean bipartisan so now bipartisan fascism is a thing? You're saying that out of our electorate that, 600 or 300 million, well, that's like the whole population, but 150 million people who actually vote? You're saying that we're all bad? We're the problem? Okay.
It is rhetoric. Let me just give
okay.
Specific.
But okay.
So you come back in. When you say they're both great evils, they're both equally bad, this is what bothers me. On Gaza, maybe you're right. But on a whole host of other important issues, Trump is undeniably, demonstrably much worse than Harris. Let me just give you some examples. If Trump is elected, over 10 million undocumented immigrants are going to be targeted in a bloody, you say fearmonger, his words, this weekend, in a bloody military operation. If Trump is elected, one study says there'll be 4 billion tons of additional US emissions by 2030, which you might think would be a big deal for the Green Party. If he's elected...
Yeah. Like weird.
All the gains that workers have made during the Biden-Harris administration, undeniable organizing gains, trade union gains, will be gone. If Trump is elected, we have another pandemic. People will die in their hundreds of thousands.
They're not dying now? The COVID is making a major comeback as we speak.
500,000 people died in the last year of Trump presidency. Please don't insult those people by saying that happens every presidency.
How is that an insult? There are lots of people dying
that was
from
sui
COVID.
generis to Trump. You know that no one else would have handled COVID like Trump.
Of course, we agree that the man is incompetent.
Okay.
No question.
So I'm asking you about the policies.
Let me talk specifically,
please.
because we talk about the horrible things that Trump does, and then we see the Democrats adopt those policies on this issue
what I
of
read out to you,
expanding
you're
war.
not bothered by 10 million undocumented being targeted by the military, 4 billion additional carbon emissions, tons of carbon emissions.
Well, okay, let me speak to that. Let me speak to that, because it is largely under Joe Biden that we have massively expanded these liquid natural gas export facilities.
Oh,
it's horrible. So,
but it's worse under Trump. You never do the worst.
It's actually not.
You always say they're the same.
In fact,
You think Trump has a better climate record than Kamala Harris and Joe Biden?
Well, I think that Biden exceeded Trump in terms of fossil fuel emissions, and the same is true for Obama having exceeded Bush. So we hear
the man
a lot.
says climate change is a hoax, and you think he's the same.
It's not about the rhetoric, it's about the policy.
Okay, so what is the Trump policy for the environment? To pull out of the Paris Climate Change Agreement, to increase oil and drilling.
Okay, nonetheless, that was his policy.
To deregulate.
And yet Joe Biden...
Dude, she's proving his point that they only go after the Democrats because she's doing the thing. She's grading Trump on a curve just because it's convenient for her argument right now.
Who came in saying not another acre of public land?
You're confusing me with the wrong person. I'm not a defender of Joe Biden's climate record. Let me read to you what Michael Mann says. Every time I ask you something,
that somehow Trump is terrible and the Democrats are good. So I'm simply trying to school you. I am trying to school you to get beyond the rhetoric of the Democrats.
You said I say everything the Democrats say is fine. You should really watch this show, see the guests who come on the show. What you said is
no,
I'll tell you what I'm saying. I'll tell you what I'm saying.
No, it's an objective reality, though.
You know Michael Mann, he's a professor of climate science
and a diehard Democrat
at the University of Pennsylvania.
Yes,
he says the climate, I'm sure, that's the kind of thing Donald Trump says, he's a scientist. The climate is a great example of the perfect being the enemy of the good. With Harris, he says the record's not good, we have a fighting chance. With Trump, it's pretty close to game over.
We have a fighting chance when we get out and make a fighting chance.
I mean, I appreciate the fact, I guess, that she's just like, no, I'm not out of this yet. Come on.
Under Richard Nixon and his very conservative Supreme Court, we were active on
so you think you can organize under Trump to get climate action?
Well, not only climate action, on peace action, on anti-genocide action.
While he invokes the Insurrection Act, shoots at protesters.
Movements go to die under Democratic rule.
You think there's going to be free protests under a second Trump term?
Well, we haven't seen them under...
Honestly, how are you listening to her answers here and just being like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll just go vote for fucking Trump then.
Under Democrats. Under Democrats, these movements go silent.
Because, again, based on her logic, yeah, go vote for the fucking Republican because apparently the Democrats are the fucking problem.
Massive record protest for Gaza in this city.
We saw.
You think Donald Trump's going to? He's going to deport people.
We saw university presidents being deposed.
Did we not see record protests though in this city?
Listen, we absolutely saw protests.
This is a very strange argument. Your argument is Democrats are bad, which I agree with. Therefore, Trump can't be worse. Yes, he can.
No one is.
He can invoke the Insurrection Act,
Hold on 1 second.
which Harris is not.
Now this is a plain character.
You're both talking at the same time. One of you picks.
May I? Yeah. No one is saying that Trump cannot be worse. But
sounds like you both are saying that.
No one is actually in point of fact saying that. What we're saying is that we are not responsible for the Democrats' failures to create a meaningful alternative to Team Red. And the more that we do the work of actually providing a meaningful alternative for the American people, one, we will consolidate power in a third party, which will give Americans choice in future elections. And
this guy's a broken clock because, yeah, he could be right, but he's also like, dude, you're not the man. At what point do you just look at this and just go, maybe we aren't the ones for the job?
Two, we will provide maximal leverage on the few adults that are left in the room on Team Blue that will hopefully push them to behave like responsible adults.
Red, that's fun.
That's funny because even the farthest left think you're assholes. AOC is the one who actually brought you to national prominence with this one, with her TikTok and calling you out.
That's on them. That is not on us.
That's on
them. That is not on us.
So let's talk about record.
Mehdi, we are not going to build an alternative overnight. We're going to have to build it.
Right.
And that may mean getting to 5%, then 10%, and then 15%.
Man, he gets...
We're running out of time. And what is really clear is that we are headed over the cliff right now, very clearly under Democrat policies, as well as Republican.
And I think we're guaranteed over the cliff if a fascist comes in, a domestic terrorist, to quote Bush. So, Jill, let me talk about some record stuff, because let's put Donald Trump to one side for a moment. Let's talk about your record. We talked about how good your record has been on Gaza and how many Palestinians like you. But a lot of Syrians would say your record was as bad on Syria as it has been good on Gaza. Now you oppose a genocide, then you were indifferent to a genocide.
May I clarify?
Let me finish the question, and you can. You said in November 2015, as Assad and Putin were massacring Syrians in their tens of thousands, quote, the US should be working with Syria, Russia, and Iran to restore all of Syria to control by the government. That's the Assad government.
That was an unapproved statement, which was taken down the moment it was...
You seem to have a lot of things online that you don't approve that go out. We just talked about Instagram.
Number two,
two pretty big ones.
But didn't she earlier say that she's going to hire the best people, kind of like Donald Trump?
So
An endorsement of Trump and a support of genocide?
One from 2015 and an Instagram like, come on, man, be serious.
Yeah, really.
Be serious.
And this
Be
was
serious.
all of one sentence in a press release that got posted on a website. I never, ever said
Yeah, it's called
anything
scrutiny,
in support
dude.
Of Assad.
Picked a
Never.
running mate who was a supporter of Assad. The predecessor to Butch was a guy called Ajamu Baraka, who suggested Assad's election victories were legitimate, and then went on a trip to Syria to see Assad, to go with a bunch of pro-Assad activists. That was your running mate. You can understand why Syrian Americans were a little bit upset with you.
Well, that was not a statement on my behalf. I have not been to Syria. I have not said a thing in support of Assad. And we clarified immediately, it was covered by The Hill, that was a mistake. We took it down. We apologized for it and made clear that we strongly support the sovereignty and exactly of the Syrian people to determine their future.
Do you have any qualms as a Muslim American about running alongside someone who a lot of Muslim Americans, especially Syrian Americans, have publicly criticized for the stance on Assad?
Absolutely not. The first set of phone calls that I made when this offer was extended to me was in the Palestinian community, the Arab American community. I taught at the University of Michigan.
The Syrian American?
Yes, absolutely. And the questions were posed to me. And I asked Jill pointedly about this and was given exactly this answer. When I actually showed them the documentation, all of the people that had questions, their fears were assuaged. So I went in with an absolutely clear conscience on this question. I 100% believe in Jill's position with respect to not just Palestinian Americans, but with respect to Muslims' right to self-determination. And I believe in those things because when I asked her in an Instagram Live about what the overall foreign policy vision of Jill Stein was, it was actually about dismantling these imperial apparatuses that have tormented Muslims for so long, the Iraq war, Afghanistan war. And just so you know, we will be going, I won't mention what.
Does she have any agency? Like, does she have anything? Because could you imagine if this was Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, like, and the VP was speaking in this interview as much as he is? Yeah, I think that this would kind of start to be like, hey, which one of you is the actual presidential candidate?
One particular day, but we will be on 9/11. We will be.
And Jill is crumbling here, man. Like she can sit there looking uncomfortable all she wants, but if this really does make the case for you for Jill Stein to be president, holy crap. You guys apparently you're just as bad as the blue no matter whoers because now I'll go vote for whoever as long as it's not the establishment.
In Michigan to do a 9/11 memorial march, and we will talk about the dreadful consequences of this tragic day, and we will have a moment of silence for all of those lost souls, and then we will have a moment of silence for the hundreds of thousands of people who had their lives taken.
Well, prepare for the future moments of silence for the future dead that you're going to be contributing to with your mentality here and your cause for dissuading Muslim Americans for voting for Kamala Harris in this election. I mean,
unjustly in the imperialist extractive wars that were fought in those names.
So I'm glad you brought that up because you have been
you.
very eloquent and bold. We began the interview with me saying you have the strongest position on Gaza by a mile.
Yes.
But it's easy to condemn what America is doing. The critics are saying it's what Russia or Syria does that you haven't condemned. And they point out, as you know, that you went to Russia in December 2015. You sat at a table briefly with Vladimir Putin at the height of the Syrian war.
I did what JFK said.
In the wake of his illegal annexation of Crimea, you didn't harshly criticize Putin, they say. In fact, you put out a video of you in Moscow in Red Square, harshly criticizing not Putin, but American foreign policy in Russia. You didn't criticize Russia in that video.
Actually,
you criticized America. Not in that video, 2.5-minute video you put out from Red Square. You said America.
It's so convenient that there's tweets, Instagrams, video, but no.
I've got it here. I've got the transcript. You said you called out U.S. exceptionalism. You said we need to respect and replace a U.S. policy of domination, all of which I agree with, by the way. But in Moscow, shouldn't you say something about the Russian imperialists?
And in fact, I did. And had the speech not been taken down, it lived on the internet on the RT channel. My remarks. See that
you called out the Russian
statement.
policy.
Finish.
Yes, I actually did call that out. And yes, it is a Clinton hit job. And that video was a posting on social media. The actual purpose of that visit was to address a conference of media from around the world.
It was a Russia Today conference, which is a propaganda channel for Putin. I mean,
well,
it was some
yes, in the same way that the BBC is a propaganda channel for the UK.
MSNBC is a propaganda
Yes,
channel.
It's not the same.
Propaganda
No, they were literally buying American channels to switch to RT to specifically promote Russian propaganda. You're being completely disingenuous with this.
Channel for Team Blue.
Yes, but aren't the American
fuck
people
you,
entitled
dude.
to decide, what propaganda they're going to
I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying you should ban from them.
Team Blue, Team Blue.
When our corporate media will not cover us, yes, then
His
we do have to
dorky
embrace
little
whatever
laugh
media
again.
we
And
can
you didn't
get.
feel you should criticize Putin?
Actually,
while
I
he was
did.
to his face?
She did.
Yes,
What did you say to him?
so He was not at that conference, but he heard it.
He was sitting 3 feet away.
That was not the conference.
I know,
that was a dinner afterwards.
So why not say
there
something?
were no translators. There was no
Vladimir
introduction.
Putin speaks English.
He was there for 5 minutes before he gave a speech in Russian. Yeah.
If Joe Biden was sitting at a table with you 5 minutes, you wouldn't call him out on Gaza? If Benjamin Netanyahu was sitting at a table with you, you wouldn't call him out?
But if,
so why not Putin?
if he is unavailable, if he's across the table and there's just screaming noise, what, you're going to go shout over
You're
the
telling
table?
me if you sat at a table with Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu for 5 minutes, you wouldn't say anything to them?
Well, this is why I
Sitting
made the
next to his main
point to
spokesman.
focus my speech on these remarks
right.
and to criticize Russia for basically following in the U.S.
So here's what
footsteps by
bothers
bombing
us.
Syria.
Here's what, let me finish this conversation.
if I can
Hold on,
understand,
I need to talk about Russia now.
Dude, you need to stop because honestly, this is an interview for Jill Stein. Not just like you're not helping here, man. And the fact that she can't answer these without you interjecting is making her look weaker and weaker and weaker.
I'll bring you in because you weren't there with respect. Jill was.
That's fair.
On the day you posted that video on the 17th of December 2015, Russian warplanes bombed a residential area in Aleppo, killed 8 people, including 4 kids. 10 days after you went to that dinner in Russia, on 20th of December, Russian warplanes bombed a marketplace in Idlib, killed over 40 Syrian people in the area. Did you ever condemn any of that?
Yes,
Did you feel
absolutely.
bad about being in
Yes.
Russia, talking about peace while they're dropping bombs?
Well, that was the point. That was one of the
didn't work,
points
did it?
in my actual remarks. Well, whose has worked? Yes, but I was also on that. In that same trip, I was in Paris talking with Jeremy Corbyn. I was talking with the Chinese deputy negotiator on climate. So am I going to change the world by having a 1-minute conversation with world leaders? No.
Well, apparently you are by having, if we make you president, and that, yeah, that's what you're saying. That's literally what your whole platform is based on is one phone call of ending the genocide.
More often than not, you can't even get their attention. But what I was able to do was to put on record 3 issues, 3 top issues. One was a global Green New Deal. A second was a peace offensive in the Middle East and actually withholding weapons from this madness and this perpetual war in the Middle East.
We looked at your social media, and you haven't done that many posts specifically calling out Russian attacks on civilian areas. You haven't called Vladimir Putin a war criminal, but you have called Benjamin Netanyahu a war
actually,
criminal.
we did.
Yeah.
In my very first remarks about the Ukraine war, we condemned.
Vladimir Putin's a war criminal. in your view.
Yes, we did.
And Bashar
condemn.
al-Assad's a war criminal.
Yes, in so many words. Yes, we
Are you guys starting to see where she might be getting her funding?
have said
in
as
so many
much.
words.
So
You called Netanyahu one, which I think he is.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
Is Putin a war criminal?
So what we said about Putin was that his invasion of Ukraine is criminal. It's a criminal and murderous war.
And he's a war criminal who should be on trial.
Well, by implication.
You're struggling here to
Let
say
me
something
say-
very
yes,
simple.
let me-
Oh,
Why
baby.
is Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal, but not Vladimir Putin?
Well, as John F.
The rubles have fallen out of her jackets, comrade.
Kennedy said, we must not negotiate out of fear, and we must not fear to negotiate. So if you want to be an effective world leader, you don't start by name-calling and hurling
So how will
epithets.
Okay, so how are you? Wait a minute. So how are you going to get anything done in your own country if you're going to do this with the Democrats? Good job, Jill.
President Stein negotiate with Israel then if you've called Netanyahu a war criminal?
Well, because he very clearly is a
Oh, so
war
Putin
criminal.
clearly isn't a war criminal.
Well, we don't have a decision.
I love you, Mehdi.
Put it this way, by the International Criminal Court.
Yes, we do.
For
Actually,
his arrest.
you're wrong. There's an arrest
and
warrant for
the-
Putin.
for
There
the-
isn't yet an arrest warrant for Netanyahu. So
Yeah.
why is Putin not a war criminal, but Netanyahu is?
Yeah.
I think they both
let
are.
me say.
You don't.
Let me say this. We are sponsoring that war. We are sponsoring
That's our
Netanyahu.
war.
He is our dog in this fight. That is why we have a responsibility.
Dude, look at how she was pivot. She had that clear thought for a second there where she was like, "Oh, I got you on this one."
Disagreement
to
from me at
pull him
all,
back.
but that
With
does
Russia,
not answer
it's-
my question.
with Russia,
Yep.
it's
Whether we
far more.
sponsor
Nice
them
try.
or not is irrelevant. Either you're a war criminal or you're
Yep.
not. Is Vladimir Putin a war criminal?
In so many words, yes, he is.
I don't know what so many words are. Butch, is Vladimir Putin a war criminal?
Let me say that whatever you think he is, if
I'm thinking that the rubles will not be going to campaign.
you want to pull
It's not
him
what I
back.
think. I'm asking what you
Well,
think.
if
You're
you,
running for
if you
president.
are
I'm
a
not.
world leader, you don't begin your conversation by calling someone a war criminal unless
So why
you
have
have
you called Biden and
Why'd
Netanyahu
you?
war
Yeah,
criminals?
why'd
because
you do
we have a
that?
clear strategy, and we
Doesn't
have
make
a
any sense
very
to me.
strong.
Butch,
That does.
Is Bashar
Yeah,
al-Assad
that makes
Vladimir Putin
zero
a war criminal?
sense.
In my humble opinion, as an individual, I would
God, she even knows she failed there.
class their actions as criminal without any question. What I would say also in response to affirm my sister soldier, Dr. Jill Stein's point, is that we have a differential relationship of responsibility, okay? The differential relationship of responsibility is as follows. This is our genocide in Gaza. Israel is our landed aircraft carrier. We provide 70% of the arms and munitions. Everyone wants to pin this on Netanyahu and the right wing in the Zionist entity, but in point of fact, this is an American genocide. And therefore, we have a different kind of responsibility to
It's not an American genocide. You could say that, sure, we sponsored it, but again, that's not making it just an American genocide.
call out people
I'm sorry. I'm going to apply, this is stupid logic, I know. Like, I'm already kind of there. But it is kind of just being like, okay, so if a sponsor for a hockey team or whoever the hell does something, are you going to hold that hockey team to the whole like platform of that? Oh, I guess, you know what? No, you're right. I just proved my own point here where it's like, no. But if they didn't get rid of that sponsor, I'd be pretty pissed.
That are in our own house.
Okay.
We clean our own house
I'll
first.
walk
and
off
if we
that
are running
point.
for leaders of the free world, as you say, without the qualifications, then there is no point in pissing in Vladimir Putin's cereal.
Okay.
And can
Wait,
I add,
what?
We have ginned up that war in Ukraine. We had everything to do with the coup in 2014.
I'm not saying we haven't. That wasn't my question. That doesn't excuse Putin.
In Israel,
Well, no, that's
it's
not-
pretty clear
that's
cut
not how war
that there
crimes
is
work.
a murderous,
With respect, Jill,
there's
that's
a
not how war
murderous
crimes work.
genocide
No.
going on.
War crimes are war
which
crimes
to me-
regardless of who commits them.
Well, if
That's
we
my
were to
position
call
on
out
international
every
law.
war criminal, we would also have to be calling out Barack Obama.
Yep,
We'd
and
have
we
to
can.
call out Dick Cheney.
We can.
I mean, there's just a lot. And George
I
Bush.
have. All three of us have.
Yeah, and notice how the only one that you're mincing words with is Vladimir Putin, the one that you're actually like you have been seen with, you have history with. The RT scandal is an actual scandal for a reason. It's almost, like they are funding your campaign.
But it seems to be I'm the only one
Allegedly.
call out Putin at this table.
Wait, hold on. You didn't hear me? I answered
said
the
the
question.
crimes, you didn't say him.
No, I said that they were both criminal. I said
Okay, good.
And
Jill-
I
Jill
have called
Stein
him a
did.
criminal as well.
Okay, good.
Yes, okay,
Let's
so
move
we're
on
done.
from
Yes.
there.
In so many words. In so many words, Jill Stein said
By the
it.
way, getting to this.
I
I
don't
understand
think
the point you're
that
making, although I don't
moves
agree with
us
it.
forward in solving the war in Ukraine. We need to sit down and we need to negotiate without name calling.
I agree with
And
that.
I take
Let's
that very
talk-
seriously. And I
Before
think
we
it's
run out of time,
important
let's talk
not
domestic-
to disrupt our chance at peace here by name calling.
Let's talk domestic policy. Butch Ware,
Name
Gaza
calling the
aside,
person
what would you say is the policy
possibly
issue
funding you.
you believe your platform is best on compared to the Democrats or the Republicans?
Because she was perfectly fine name calling any Democratic politician that she disagrees with. So
Yeah, so the way that I would answer this question actually emerges from the first conversation that Jill and I had. And Jill was giving a layout of two things. So first, I'll just...
Your platform is best on compared to the Democrats or the Republicans?
Yeah, so the way that I would answer this question...
domestic policy.
Or by name calling.
Let's talk domestic policy. Butch Ware, Gaza aside,
Yes.
what would you say is the policy issue you believe your platform is best on compared to the Democrats or the Republicans?
Yeah, so the way that I would answer this question actually...
What the fuck was that? Oh my God.
emerges from the first
She just said, "Oh my
conversation that
God."
Jill and I had. And Jill was giving a layout of two things. So first, I'll just provide a little bit of background, and then I'll answer the question directly. So I had just made a post about Kamala Harris and how Kamala Harris had been asked a question about
Kamala.
reparations, and she danced around the topic for a full 2 minutes, and then she said specifically, "I will never do anything that only helps black people." That's the way that she said it. So I asked Jill about reparations, and Jill said they act as though it's an incalculable amount, but it's been calculated many times by specialists.
I don't think Jill is 100% behind this, and in order to have him on the ballot or on her on her side,
It's between 10 and 13
I think that was the capitulation that was, yeah, sure, go for reparations.
$2 trillion US, and I'm in favor of cash payments. to
But
the
look how
descendants of
uncomfortable
enslaved
she
people.
is. Look at her.
Right? So from the beginning, a conversation about transformative intervention to alleviate the wealth gap in African-American communities. But the real answer to your question actually came when we were talking about drug policy, okay? And when Dr. Jill started to talk about how we treat the drug crisis in America now as a Green Party, as a public health problem rather than a problem to be solved by the carceral state, I mentioned the fact that my wife is Mexican-American because Jill said that if you actually legalize these substances, you disempower the cartels in Central America that are responsible for all of these political assassinations. You take away a lot of the push factor that is involved in the so-called migration crisis. And immediately my head starts to turn and I'm like, oh my God, we have a magic bullet that solves the problem of my cousin being locked up for 3 years on petty drug charges, right? And that solved my wife's problem of her mom not being able to see her brother for 23 years because she came here undocumented. That if we just take a simple, common sense solution that is good for white folks in Appalachia, right? We treat
Good luck selling this one to the American people, dude.
drugs as a public health problem, then we can take the carceral state, migration policy, and social housing all in one, and we treat this with domestic policies that actually serve the American people rather
So
than
let me
serve the
repeat, before we
1%.
run out of time, let me repeat what I said at the start of this interview, which feels like a long time ago. Your policies, a lot of your
was.
policies are great.
Yes.
You said earlier about Noura Erakat, maybe she doesn't understand how politics works. Do you understand how politics works, Jill Stein? Because these are great policies. Medicare for all, higher taxes on the wealthy, student debt forgiveness, a higher minimum wage, all on the Green Party website. I looked at it, I said, great, love this. But how do you get them passed into law? Let's say you win the presidency, which I don't think you can. But let's say you do by some miracle. Biden, to be fair, tried to do a lot of that stuff. Yes, he did. Yes, he tried to. He
Yeah, he did.
in the Senate.
Yeah, he did.
Wage.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to have these things, like these pieces of legislation, and then you have to work within, the bipartisan structure that we have to try and, capitulate on one issue and then kind of appease another one, and then you guys kind of build the bill, and then that's how that is, that's how that works.
In cinema, put a thumbs down, and 8 Democrats joined with a bunch of Republicans to basically screw over
in the
bill.
current system, which is
so if Biden couldn't get it past his own party, the Republicans, they hate, both parties hate you. How are you going to get through Congress
remember when Barack Obama got elected, with his army of grassroots advocates, he basically sent them home when he appointed Larry Summers as his Treasury Secretary. And it was clear whose interest he is serving and did serve. And that goes true down the line of Democrats. This is a bought and paid for political system. So it's very hard.
To be fair, they did try and do a lot of this stuff. Biden tried to do student debt. The Supreme Court stopped him.
Well, he tried, but through a very fallible mechanism that was a setup for being stopped by.
Yeah, executive action, the same thing that you want to use to stop the war in Gaza.
By the Supreme Court. But suffice it to say, it's very hard to move anything to that system. And we know from, academic studies and just the real world that it is not the interests of everyday people for healthcare, for housing, for education. That doesn't matter one bit. It's serving big donors that does. But what we will do is we will enact some really critical measures that the president has authority over just by virtue of the bully pulpit. So let me tell you what we will do. On day one, we will undertake an antitrust lawsuit against the consolidated corporate media so that we can break up media and encourage independent reporting like what we're seeing here and relieve that bar of censorship, because the First Amendment is first for very good reasons. If we don't
do that by executive order, because you're not going to get a bill.
Well, no, but you can get your Department of Justice to basically undertake the case.
But the things I mentioned, health and Medicare for all.
Yeah, and then it goes again to the federal courts, and then it gets denied because technically that's unconstitutional. Good job.
Well, let me get to that. We will also once again begin town hall meetings, which have been ended.
Oh, Lord!
Because you
gotta solve it all with the town hall, baby.
Donors, not to their constituents. So we will shame politicians into having to meet with their.
Have you met some of these politicians? You can't shame them.
Yes, well, wait a minute. But when you have the
to be fair to the Democrats
you
again,
can name names.
There was a massive campaign, as you know, Jill Stein, for voting rights, right? For voting rights, there was a massive grassroots campaign across the country.
you might not.
And yet Joe Manchin, one guy, blocked voting rights
reform. Who gave Joe Manchin
No,
power? I mean,
shut
this
up.
is why we have to put power back into the hands of people.
Let your president speak.
And the other one is congressional hearings.
That's right.
And likewise decorporatizing the media.
Congressional hearings, you don't have any parties in Congress. You haven't. See, that's one of the criticisms of the Green Party is that you run for president every 4 years, but you've not built up a presence in state legislatures. Hold on, let me finish the question. Gubernatorial offices?
Yes.
Please speak to it.
Yes.
Or in the federal legislature, in Congress.
But
Jill Stein runs every 4 years.
So let me say,
but where is the building?
So we have tripled our vote, for one thing, from 2012 to 2016. But let me say beyond that, what are you comparing us to? You've got to compare us to other grassroots.
Ross Perot, Ron Paul, even they had a better grassroots campaign than you because they went past that. They started building the Libertarian Party. They got libertarians on the local ballots. What did you do? You disappeared. You went into your little hole, like the little election cicada that you are. I know it's an old joke at this point, but it's a goodie.
That are not corrupted, that do not take the money.
The Green Party in Germany is in government, in England is in parliament. Green parties around the world do as very serious parties.
We do not have proportional representation here in this country.
Nor does the UK.
Small parties, grassroots, people-powered parties in this country are dead within 10 years. They're done. So they don't even have an opportunity to
By that logic, why run for president then?
Because we're going over the cliff. Because we need to stop. Because we can't.
I guess we're going over. You got Thelma and Louise on this one.
Before you add one more data point and then you deal with both. The argument is you haven't built up a presence.
No, that's entirely wrong. We have built up a presence.
No, you haven't.
We are the alternative.
No, you haven't.
So we have over 1,500 local elected.
That's not what I asked.
So wait a minute. This is about building. We have been.
That's not what he asked. State legislation.
Compared to us is the Peace and Freedom Party,
Stein,
which had 14 ballot lines, which they
I don't
lost
like
20
interrupting you.
years
You're not answering
ago.
the question. How many state legislators do you have?
So we have had a couple. We have had a handful.
Right now.
But let's say we need to stop the Democratic Party from throwing us off the ballot.
Okay.
We need to stop the Democratic Party.
So let me add
from
a data
hanging on
point,
to
and then bring in Butch, who's waiting patiently.
We can fix this, but we need to get the word out, because when we do get the word out,
we put you here for an hour to get the word out.
And we need to multiply this 1,000 times.
Understood.
Right.
So,
And this is how
Butch,
we
the
get
argument
there.
is you don't have any members of state legislatures, you don't have any members of Congress, you don't have any governors. So
and why aren't you out there trying to build them?
The presidency, you don't have that organized elected movement that you need. You can't just have people on the street. You need lawmakers. And you've joined a party which has shrunk over 20 years. You had the Green Party had 319,000 members in 2004. Today it has 245,000 members. Instead of growing, you've shrunk.
Yeah. So you're talking about the kind of first golden era of the Green.
Yeah, because guess what? Somebody like me, who was a registered independent that used to vote with Green Party, and admittedly, I voted for a libertarian. Yeah, it's almost like you kind of lost us.
Party with Ralph Nader at its head. What I would say, just to be clear, is that I joined this struggle
Nader,
for the long
not
term.
Perot.
I came to this office from scouting out our national headquarters here in Washington, D.C. You are going to get sick of seeing me around here, Mehdi. You're going to get sick of seeing Dr. Jill around here. This is a moment where all of the years that the Green Party has been doing work, people like Annie Young, Park and Recreation Board in the city of Minneapolis for 20 plus years, a public servant. We've got public servants like that all over this country that have never had the kind of shine on their work that they are now seeing. So we are already having the conversations about the congressional runs, the gubernatorial runs. And if, as you say, we only have that 1 in 1,000 shot at the chin of Trump, right? And let's say we miss. Let's say we don't land that punch. Let's say we don't get this.
What's that percentage?
The Muhammad Ali versus Sonny.
What's 8% of 150 million?
Listing outcome that I, as a black Muslim, believe we have a shot at getting. What's to stop Dr. Jill Stein,
what's 8% of 500 million
from running for a gubernatorial position or a congressional position in an off-year election? I
said 500. What's 8% of 150 million?
In this fight, we are in this fight to build.
Just realized how basic that was.
I think a lot of your critics would say they wish you'd been doing that all these years instead of pointless presidential race.
That takes resources, brother, and you know that these people are outspending us a million to one.
Last question to you, Jill Stein. I don't think, and most people don't think, and I suspect neither of you think you're going to win the presidency in November.
Well, doesn't grassroots if you have a grassroots movement, doesn't that mean that you would have grassroots money? Like, look at how Bernie was effective. He had an actual grassroots campaign, unlike you. He had support, unlike you.
You are making a lot of noise. You are getting a lot of new supporters, especially over Gaza. What do you plan to do with the new support you've got beyond November? Butch touched at it. What is your plan for growth?
So, generically, we're going to be very focused on local races.
That's right.
And bringing these new constituents who are newly politically active, who are newly active in grassroots politics, to basically help build leadership.
So young people, you're going to essentially high schools and colleges and trying to get young people to not radicalize, that's kind of what it is. Like, that's how they got me.
To help build candidates and help build networks to support them. So they will be starting mainly at the local level, but we will be building up from there. This is the first time, the Green Party has been ahead of the curve on climate change, on militarism, on
they try to get you before you take a poli-sci class,
genocide, on Medicare, and Medicare for All, which was launched by Ralph Nader. Actually, the whole progressive democratic agenda was launched by the Green Party. So
we're going to build on that.
We absolutely will. So, and the progress that we have made so far is not trivial, and it's not to be discounted, and it's been made against an extremely steep playing field that's controlled by
the playing field is bad. But the playing field is where we are, and it's a playing field that could deliver us Trump or Harris. I'm going to try one last time. I'll give you the last word. I asked you to 2016, and it went horribly badly afterwards. Let me ask you this again. Would you tell your supporters at home, vote Green everywhere, but in those 3 swing states, vote against a domestic terrorist?
I would say it's very important for us to stand up and demand the democracy that we deserve. We should not be in the business of endorsing genocide. And I would say forget the lesser evil. Good luck figuring out which one is the greater evil when one of them is doing a genocide right now.
The other one may do it in the future. And domestic terrorism. That's the problem. We'll have to leave it there. I was giving Jill Stein the last word.
I think we have domestic terrorism right now when we have 80 cop cities that are being built around the country.
You can't say they're all the same all the time. Jill Stein,
I'm not saying they are the same, but they're not different enough. And if we
this is what you said to me in 2016. These are the exact words that we got Trump.
We've been proven absolutely right.
I think I was proven right. We got Donald Trump.
We can both be right.
Okay, we'll both be right, but people will suffer.
We can both be right.
Let's end on that note. Jill Stein, Butch Ware, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, the only difference is she's the one pretending that she has their back. So she's actually contributing to the suffering in that regard, because if she's actually convincing people to vote against their self-interest, I'm sorry, she's way more harmful to this process than she's even than Mehdi's even calling her out for. Like, man, that was. Well, that was another Jill Stein goodie. Man, this woman, as I said, 2028, let's just prepare to do it again. She'll probably have another young leftist, extreme leftist, although maybe not, because this guy might have turned her off, because you could tell that she was getting a little perturbed. But yeah, Anyway, if you enjoyed this content, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I've also got some other Jill Stein videos out there, so if you want to really beat your head against a wall, seek that one out. But yeah, no, I appreciate you guys being here. Leave if you guys can subscribe, that'd be awesome. It's free to you, trying to get to 1,000, so I really do appreciate it. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one.